Welcome back to your best bets. Listen, it's been a bit of a hiatus here over at Phil Miller Central. I think the last podcast we put out was the NBA preview pod. That was probably mid-October, so we've been about 3 or 4 weeks out since we've recorded a podcast. So still podcast over here. We got some plans for the next few weeks to have some new episodes, and really glad to kind of get back on track. And with us tonight is Scott Pieri. We're recording this on Monday nights. Scott just went through a regional senior tour qualifying process last week, so he's fresh off that. So I thought I'd have Scott on to talk about that, what his future plans are, and just kind of wherever the conversation goes, golf in general, whatever. So Scott, thanks for coming back. I know this is like the fourth or fifth time you've been on your best bets, so glad to have you back, buddy.
Yeah, man, I'm glad to be here. It's always a blast to chat with you, and I'm sure we got plenty to talk about.
Yeah, so I guess take us through. It's weird because I think the first time you were on was almost 2 years ago now, kind of talking
Right.
about where you were at in your career, your venture on the senior tour. And so talk about last week. Obviously you didn't play poorly, but, just by kind of looking at your scores, what you posted on social over the weekend. But I'm sure it's not exactly what you wanted. And, kind of what resulted from that result for you.
Yeah. Well, Q school, I was okay. You got to finish top 16 or 17 there. Depends on the number of players. It was 16 was the number. And I think I finished 23rd or 22nd or something like that. It was a couple shots, few shots. I was really ready to go when I went down there. It's been I have to backtrack just a little bit to let people know that, this year has been a bit of a weird year because in late 2021, my father-in-law had an accident that ended up, he lost his life December 29th. And then February 3rd, February 7th, Holly was diagnosed with cancer. So we've been going through, she had surgery in March. She's doing fine. She's going to be great. Phil, she's good. There's no lymph nodes are fine. Everything's great. She's fine.
Awesome.
But I didn't play all year until I played 3 qualifiers right at the end of the year to kind of get ready for Q school. So to say that I was a bit competitively flat when I came out, I felt that it was a little bit, it wasn't that great, but I felt great going to Q school. I really did. I felt like I was going to get through. I wasn't even questioning it, to be honest with you, but it's just kind of the way it's been the last year and a half. It's just been okay. And a few too many mistakes and, some missed putts, and I drove the ball beautifully. It's just, I'm just okay right now. It's just a little rusty, I guess.
So obviously a lot of stuff going on with your personal life the last year or so.
Sure.
That takes a toll on, just kind of your golf game, getting the time that you would hope to have to go put the time into practice and grind. I think it was about a month ago I saw you put on social. You were driving to the course at like 6:30 in the morning. It was dark, and you were kind of talking about how hard the grind is, but that you also, and for any golfer, you kind of love that process, but it isn't easy.
Yeah, that video it was crazy how many views that video got, to be honest with you. But I was sick. First off, I sounded sick, but for whatever reason that morning, I thought I had my little cup phone, deal set up, and it was on me. And I thought I'm just going to just film and just talk about what I'm doing, because I don't think I've ever done anything quite like that. And it was interesting. The response was kind of cool. Just a little insight to, listen, it's a commitment, man. And when you're working, because I just play part-time. Yeah. I work for a living, and and you're trying to be a husband and a father, and you're, trying to have a life. I mean, it's early mornings, and it's a lot of work. So, I don't know. I forgot. Did I get off track there? Was there a question I didn't answer?
No, it was more of a statement. And okay. No. So I think that was sort of your hint that you were really grinding, kind of leading up to this, though. In the last 4 or 6 weeks, and
I was working hard.
Yeah. so obviously things don't go terribly last week, but not exactly your desired outcome. So I know you put out there on Facebook, that you're at least stepping away from pursuing the Champions Tour.
Yeah.
Was that something that you've been thinking about the last few months, or was that just like your initial reaction after Friday's round?
Yeah. So, when we started this, Holly and I had said we were going to give it, depending on how things go, 3 to 5 years was a good window. And unfortunately, that 5 years is, again, as I explained, I had about 11 months away from qualifying, and then we had COVID. So that 5 year span was really more like probably 3 is the way it worked out, which is fine. But here's the thing that I don't think, because Phil, when you saw the comments on there, and there's plenty. Listen, it was I'm glad I did the post. I wanted to thank people in my golf career who had helped me, and I was thinking about it. And that just was an organic thing I did that morning, and I went through my phone and had all these pictures. I'm like, I'm gonna do this. But there are people on there that are like, oh man, you're so close. You got another one in you. You got, they're encouraging, and that's cool. I appreciate that. But I just want to just explain something to everybody that, if you have no status, if you go to Q school, you finish top 30 in Q school, there are 5 exempt cards and there are 25 qualifying cards. I had one of those 25 qualifying cards in 2019. It is everything because you don't have to go to the pre-qualifier, which is the qualifier that gets you into the open qualifier if you don't have any status. So this is how it lays out. Let's just say we're going to Endicott, New York. You get in the car, you drive to Endicott, or you fly. You're probably driving to Endicott. You drive on Wednesday. Friday is pre. You drive Wednesday, so you can play a practice round Thursday. You play on Friday. If you make it on Friday, you're there for the weekend to go to the open qualifier. If there's an event the week before Endicott, which there is, the open qualifier will be on Tuesday because they got to give the guys a day to travel. So you qualify on Friday, and then you sit there Saturday, Sunday, probably play a practice round on Monday just to give it a shot on Tuesday. So I understand when people are saying, oh man, just hang in there and try, but that's what it takes. You have to be able to do that if you're going to be out there. And I did that in all of 2021. And I only got through 2 pre's. And then I played 3 in 2022. I didn't get through any. And then I went to Q school and I didn't get through. So the whole thing behind this, after explaining that, is I really do not want to put in all this time, all this effort, all this work on my game, my body, my life, my schedule, my family, everything to go pre-qualify. I don't want to do that again. I don't feel that is a productive way to go about playing. And not to mention that the level of play out there has jumped. So I don't think it's that my game has ticked down that much, because I think it has maybe a little. My iron game especially has maybe ticked a little, but the line has been moved. And so now that little bitty space I had where I was really close now is a little bit wider, and I can feel that. I can see that. So the guys who are coming out, the guys who are coming off the tour, the no names that are out there right now, Phil, I'm telling you, the level of play out there is it's up. It's gone up. The bar has been moved. And so to go pre, like for example, in 2019, when I had my tour card, in 2019, if you shot 1 under even in any pre-qualifier, you literally got through. I mean, that's kind of where the pre's were. This year in 2022, I played 3 pre-qualifiers. It took 4 under, 5 under, and 6 under in the pre just to get to the open. And the opens each week were better. They were like 5, 6, 7. I just listen. I'm a realist. I'm never pretended to be better than I was or worse than I was, and I know where I'm at. And I look at that and I think, could I get back? Could I get to that level again? Could I get back that? I suppose it's maybe possible, but the reality is having to go pre-qualify and live your life like that, go out for 8, 10 weeks. It's just not something I'm interested in.
Yeah.
And so the only thing to do is to say, listen, man, I had a great time out there, a great run. And I just don't want to do that. That just does not interest me at all. And so that's why I posted that. And I just wanted to be able to kind of share with people what I was thinking and what was going on. And I'm not retiring from playing. we were talking right before we came on the air. I remember Trip Keeney. Do you remember Trip Keeney? Do you know who
Yeah,
that is?
sure.
He at 35 or 6 years old, he announced to the world he's never going to play amateur golf again. I'm like, why would you do that?
Right.
Like if you want to go play a tournament, go play a tournament. What is?
Absolutely.
I mean, why would you announce that?
Yeah.
I'm not announcing that. So
Yeah.
like next year, the senior US Open qualifier is in Fort Wayne. Certainly, I'll play in that. Absolutely, I'd love to get qualified for the US Open. The Senior State Open is a 2-day event in early June. I'll go play in that.
Yeah.
My best buddy lives in St. Louis, one of my very best friends who was helping me this last year playing wise. Michael Welch is his name. Mike lives in St. Louis. He belongs to a wonderful club there. I'm sure I'll go to St. Louis, pre-qualify, spend the weekend with him, play golf at his club with his boys. And if I can open, that's great. If I don't, I'll come home. And so, I mean, I'll do a couple things, but I won't go to Q school next year. I do not believe I'll be back to Q school. The last 3 Q schools, I've been very close. I've even been a first alternate at one of the finals and didn't get in. But 3 missed regionals in a row is not a coincidence. That's a pattern.
Yeah.
And I accept that pattern. I understand where I'm at. And so it doesn't mean my game's not good. I'm still a nice player. I mean, I'm okay with it. It's I'm 55 years old and it's things change. I'm okay with it. I really am. I had a blast out there. I've got great memories, great stories, great friends. It's okay.
There's a lot I want to unpack from what you just said.
Go
First
ahead.
of all, when you have conditional status,
Yeah.
when you had conditional status in 19, how many starts did that get you?
I went to I had no starts.
You did not get any starts. Okay.
No,
okay.
you just have open. You just have the privilege to go straight to open.
Got you.
So I played 10 open qualifiers out there that year, and I Mondayed into 2. I played in Atlanta. That was my first event at TPC Sugarloaf, and I qualified in Calgary, which was phenomenal. At the Shaw Classic, and those were the 2 events that I played. Out there, the 2 official events. I did have the Senior US Open in 18, so I do consider that also an event, but the official events were both in 19.
Gotcha. Yeah. When you talk about the margin or the gap, from the last couple of years to like this year with it's tough as a golfer. You have that ability to think like, what if I'm peaking? What does that look like? I've seen it. I get to that bar, but then, what's actual reality? What am I consistently doing out there? I have this problem. I think like, oh man, if I peak for 3 days, I can compete in the city and, who knows what'll happen. But
right.
realistically, I'm like, but that's, I have to do this self-assessment thing where like, well, that's, what have I seen for the last 6 months, year in my golf game? But that's tough for golfers to actually admit, isn't it?
Yeah, listen, I for some people it's very tough. I have guys that I play with and been around. It's very tough. Is it hard for me? I mean, I've always been very much a realist of where I'm at. I just don't ever really kid myself one way or the other. I can say this: when I came back in 2019, I played hurt half that year, and I think we talked about when I was hurt, but I had an SI joint that was unstable and not very good. And we eventually found out I had 2 hip flexors on the same side. So I suffered that year quite a bit. I developed some bad habits in my golf swing. I rehabbed in 2020. It took almost, like COVID wasn't the worst year for me because I got my body back a bit, but it took me about 8 months to where I really felt 100%. And I felt like I could really rotate through the golf ball again. My iron game has never quite come back. I drive the ball better than I've ever driven it in my life right now, to be honest with you. I mean, I literally go out and hit 12 fairways every 18 holes I play. Literally, I mean, I drive the ball beautifully.
So what is
my iron game?
What does that mean when we're out there playing? Is it you hit a couple less screens, or is it your proximity is just a little bit farther away?
Proximity. Okay. Proximity. See, I walk my putts off when I play. You play with me. I walk putts off because I love to get a number in my head on what I'm talking about as far as sort of a max distance to roll the ball. That's kind of how I think. And so let's say back in 19, I mean, I can't tell you 18, 19, I was right there. 18, 19, I was right there with everything. I mean, I would walk putts off and I'd be 21 feet, 18 feet, 15 feet, 21 feet, 18 feet. At Q school, it was more like 33 feet, 36 feet, 27 feet, 18 feet, 33 feet, just my proximity and with my iron game is just not as tight as it once was. And I miss some greens, and then hopefully your short game is good down there. Obviously, we're playing on Bermuda. Short game is difficult. I mean, you're playing on Bermuda. It's just very unfamiliar. But that would be the number one thing I would say that has got me to this spot where, and again, to put it in perspective, if I go back to 2021, I keep all my stats of what I shoot, right? If you throw out my worst score of 2021 in competition, I averaged under 70 for the year. I averaged under 70 competitively for the year. I mean, and you say that to someone and they go, well, I mean, that had to be a good year. I got in nothing. I lost 5 playoffs. I did. I lost big ones too. US Open, Q School, Open Qualifier. It got me into nothing. I mean, that's where it's at right now. I'm a little bit less. I'm not as quite that good, I don't think, right now. I think my average, if I played 10 or 12 rounds, would be probably, more in that 70 and a half, 70 to 71. It seems like that's the scores I shoot right now when I go out and play competitively. It's either one or the other. And I might squeeze something in the 60s, but man, right now you got to be way better than that out there. You got to be really good. The guys are really good. The bar has definitely been raised a bit. And so, yeah, to go out there and bang my head against the wall and prees, man, Phil, I'm going to stick around here and work and, do my thing.
Yeah, and before we went live, I think I told you that a couple people were asking me, see what his plans are. Is he going to try to regain his amateur status? Is he still you kind of already said a little bit of what you're planning to do. There's still some events you want to play, some one-offs, but what is that? What's the next couple of years going to look like?
Yeah. So listen, for everybody in Fort Wayne, I have a huge announcement about me getting my amateur status back, and I'm not gonna. So
Listen, that's probably going to make people happy, especially for like senior cities or cities, honestly. So
I really listen. I loved my amateur golf career when I came back. That's maybe my fondest time of golf, to be honest with you. I just loved playing as an amateur, but I'm kind of past that. I don't know what that means. It's a great question. We were talking about it, Holly and I, and there's a part of me that kind of wants to teach a little bit. There's a part of me that doesn't want to teach at all. There's, do you think about maybe getting back into getting back into the radio side of things, or maybe doing podcasting, or maybe writing, or you know what? I don't think I have to make a decision anytime soon. I don't think I think I can just sort of organically let it happen. But I still think I'd like to play a few events here and there. But where it goes from there, I don't know. I mean, certainly teaching would make sense because I've taught before. I know an awful lot about the golf swing. I think I have a good handle on it. But then there's that aspect of being places and running into somebody that, I know this is terrible to say it, but I'm going to say it, that, like inquires about it. And you're like, I don't know if I want to spend an hour, every other week with that person. And I don't mean that to sound pompous or arrogant in any way. It's just what I'm saying when I say that is that indicates to me that maybe I don't want to, maybe teaching isn't the way to go, but I don't know. I'm not sure. I don't really want to teach beginners. And that's what I kind of mean when I said that someone who isn't that good. I'd rather work with competitive golfers or someone who's at a little higher level. I don't know how to distinguish that. I don't know how to separate that, or, so I don't know, man. I really don't. I'm up in the air at this point. I really am.
It's kind of nice to have a clean slate though. And
it is,
kind of see where the next few months take you. And you might end up doing something that you never even thought you'd want to do.
I agree.
I was on board with all your ideas, then you had to throw a podcast out there and steal my thunder here. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe we need an S&P podcast or something. Maybe
there you go. To get back a little bit to the competition, and you mentioned iron game. Do you think professionally, second shots, approach shots are the most critical, part of the game to professional success, or is it something else?
I think there is a clear, in my opinion at this point, a clear difference on what makes this level so different and why it's so hard to get to. And it's really right in front of you, and it's right in front of everybody. And when I say it, then you sort of maybe start realizing it. But let's just say you're going to play a 3-round tournament on the Champions Tour, and it's going to take 16 or 17 under to win. I mean, how many mistakes can you really make? How many shots can you toss away in 3 days to shoot that number? And it's next to none. And so for me, the clear difference to get to world class, which is what this is you have got to play flawless golf. You can't make those mistakes. And if you and it's okay to miss greens. I mean, it does happen, right? Especially if you're being aggressive. But once you miss a green, you have to get it up and down. That's not making the mistake, right? So I just see the best that I've come across at this level. Like I'll give you an example. Like Patrick Sheehan is a friend, and we played a practice round in Florida when I was down there. Pat finished 4th. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to throw that name out. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him in the top 5 coming out this year at Q School. He made 132 cuts on the PGA Tour. He is so stinking good, man. Mm-hmm. I saw him the last day. I kind of told him what my plans were. I kind of felt like this was coming on, and we'd see. I didn't know if I'd see him much again. We had exchanged our numbers and stuff. But I told him that day, I said, man, dude, you are so stinking good right now. Just go get one of those 5. I mean, you're world class. You're unbelievable right now. And he said, I appreciate it. But playing with him, flawless. I mean, he hits every iron shot within 30 feet of the hole, every wedge inside of 10 feet. He cleans up all his putts. He's got a wonderful attitude. He hits it long enough. He can bend it both ways. He's phenomenal. These guys are, I mean, it's unbelievable. It's world-class golf.
And it's tough with the Champions Tour events, obviously 54 holes. So like you said, right. There's just not a lot of time if you get behind to make up ground, and you have that one less extra round if you would, right. Shoot a higher number in round 1. So I one of the things I've been thinking about asking you is for an amateur like myself, or someone that's, I don't know, a 0 to a 4. I'm right in that range. I'm around a 2. What does it take? You mentioned for someone at your level, like it's hard to find 2 or 3 shots around. I mean, it's almost impossible to do it in a year or whatever, a short time span. What a low handicapper, where's the easiest place to find shots? Is it usually short game for amateurs, you think?
It's always short game. It's short game at every level. It's just different levels of short game, right? Yeah. It's trying to get to a scratch golfer short game versus a world-class short game, or whatever. But I think it's a great question. There's so many answers. Because right now we've come to learn that distance makes such a difference, but it's distance that isn't too, in trouble. And, I think short game is always the key. I just think short game is always the key. When I see people throw shots away, when I threw shots away down in Florida, short game is what really probably prevented me from, even with my irons being, and I hit the irons okay, but even with my proximity not being the greatest, I didn't get the ball up and down a few times. I had 4 3-putts in 4 days. A couple up and downs and cleaning up a few more putts, and I'm going to the finals. So short game is always a key. Learning how to control your emotions too. You know what I mean? Not letting yourself get too high and too low, not paying attention to score. That was, I think I said this to you. We talked one time on your podcast, where I said the biggest difference between professional golf and amateur golf is that amateur golfers talk about score way more. Your score, their score, everybody's score. So sort of getting yourself out of worrying about your position in the field, your score relative to par, is how you keep your emotions level, right? Because think about, we've seen it 1,000 times, right? Guy plays on the PGA Tour, plays great for 3 days, sleeps on the lead, shows up the last day, everybody's talking about him, he's doing all these interviews, and then he plays completely different and finishes 12th. Right? Why? Well, because he's emotionally, he's different. It's hard. It's hard to do, but learning how to remove yourself from score, position, all the things that get you going like this emotionally. That I see amateurs do that all the time.
I had in the spring, we had Callahan, Elzion, and I had Zach
Tremendous
Fitzgerald.
young teacher.
Great. Love
Tremendous.
him. Yeah. I worked
Yeah.
with him a couple months ago, and yeah, he's great. And
Impressive.
but on the podcast, we were talking about amateurs are probably have the most unrealistic expectations of anyone.
Amen.
He was talking about, and some of the college golfers he works with, they hit a 120-yard shot to 25 feet and they're pissed. And he's like, "What's the deal?" And we went through the stats of talking about the best iron players on tour, the proximity from the same yardage, and
Right.
I don't know where it comes from, but amateurs, good amateurs start to become just their expectations are always very, very high.
Yeah, that's it. And those are the things that get you rolling like this with your emotions. You're getting upset because you've made a determination that you haven't hit the ball close enough, instead of just, making a good swing, striking it and accepting where it goes, and then go up and get ready to play that next shot, So
Yeah.
it's a lot of cliches there. I know that, but yeah, I don't know where the high expectations come from with amateurs. I see it too, and then you see guys getting upset on the golf course. That is kind of the joke amongst the buddies that I play with, like the Stillers of the world and Jeff Jones and Will Lillards and our buddies. When you're with somebody, you see somebody just getting super pissed and they're a 10 or 12 handicap. The comment is always, "You are not good enough to be this mad, man." You just
That's right.
You don't know where the golf ball's going well enough to be this mad at yourself. Give yourself a break. Jeez, it's not that important.
What's So in your career, do you feel like you reached your ceiling, your max potential?
No.
Was there ever a certain year or any point where you were like, I'm playing as best as I
Yeah, that's a good question. And maybe answer that a little quickly. I will say this: I can pinpoint my best golf of my life right now, no questions asked. And it was 2008 to 2012 when I was an amateur. I was in my early 40s, I guess.
It's right in the middle of your 5 cities in 7 years. Yeah.
I carried a +5 handicap for those 5 years. And 2 of those years I was +6.
So good. Yeah.
And I handed every score. Every single score that I compete in. I never ever, I know how some amateurs, whatever, they leave stuff. I handed in because I want to know where I'm at. I want to find out what I am. Right. So, but I was a +6 for 20 months, solid straight. That was by far my best golf, and got me really thinking about the Champions Tour, got me really thinking. I would tell you another great stretch of golf I had was coming into the Champions Tour right before I turned 50. I went to Cedar Rapids, and they allowed 48 and older to play in their senior division. Gary Hallberg played, the state open champ from Iowa. There were some other guys I can't think of there was a really great field. Clay Devers was there, and I played 54 holes and shot 12 under and won by 5. And then went to Q school in the fall, my first Q school, and went to Disney to the Palm course and shot 72 and 3 straight 68s and won there. So that stretch going into my first finals, I was like, oh man, but I was suffering a little bit. My wrist was a little bit off, and we thought it was tendonitis. I ended up having a cyst in my wrist, and it blew up when I got to the desert, and I couldn't hit irons that well. And I ended up missing by 3, the top 30 by 3 in my first Q school, and had to wait all the way to that following year. And then went back and shot 13 under in the regional that year, going into the 19th season. I finished 3rd. And then got top 30 at Q school. So, those 2 years were really good. I felt great. I felt like I was like where that line was. I was almost kind of clutching it a little bit. Like we're right there. When I qualified in Calgary, I had felt really healthy for almost a month. I hadn't had any back pain. I've been seeing my chiropractor every week when I was, several times a week when I was home. And I shot 68 in Seattle at the Monday qualifier and missed by a shot. And then jumped a plane and went to Calgary, shot 69 on kind of a windy, cold day, and then won a playoff. Got in the event. We played the Pro-Am on Wednesday, and John Wall, my caddy, came up, and we played, and I shot 67, sandwiched between really 2 good players. And when we got done that day, I said, John, this is our week, man. They're going to know who we are when we leave this week. I'm just telling you, we are going to have a week. And I woke up Thursday, and my back was gone. and I suffered the whole rest of the whole tournament. I shot 72, 72, 74, and finished like third or fourth from the last spot, and went home and hardly could walk. So it's just,
I mean, you've had some bad luck with injuries for sure.
That injury it's the only injury I've ever had. I mean, I had the cyst, and that was weird. I came on quickly and we didn't know anything, but the only chronic injury I had was the SI joint that turned into the hip flexor problem as well, in 19. And I suffered terribly the second half of that year. The last event I went to that year, Phil, I'll tell you, we went to South Dakota, and Holly and I were trying to decide whether I should go. So I was really hurting, but I was just like, honey, I got to go. I mean, I can play. I'm going to go. So I got in the car and I drove 13 hours to South Dakota. And when I got there, I felt terrible. When I woke up Monday morning, I felt terrible. I played with Brian Cooper, my good buddy. We were paired together. I just had no business playing. I shot 77 or 8. I finished last in the field. And then I got in the car and I drove straight home. I got home at 4 a.m. and I crawled into bed and I couldn't get out of bed. I could barely crawl to the bathroom. And Holly came home on that Friday. It was on Tuesday. On Friday, she came home and said, come on, we got to go to the doctor. We got to figure out what's going on. I thought I had nerve damage or a bulging disc. I thought my career might be over. It did turn out to be this SI joint, but that was the only injury I've had that's been like chronic like that. And it just was, the timing of it was just, horrific.
Yeah. The reason I asked about have you ever reached your ceiling, or what you think your ceiling is? I think most golfers, 99% of us, we have this thought in our head of what that looks like. And is it a sustained period? Is it a month? Is it a few rounds? Most of us never get there. But I mean, I remember playing, I've been playing local amateur golf in Fort Wayne for 20 years. I mean, I remember coming to the cities and be like, this Pieri guy's going to win. I mean, and that's what all of us thought, though. I mean, seriously, though. I mean, for the local golf scene, it had like a very much of a like Tiger and his run. I mean, listen, I'm not trying to boost your ego in or anything, but
no,
there was this thought like, I mean, even for the best players, like, they got to play their best to beat this Pieri guy. I mean, how did that feel coming into those cities, knowing you're the favorite and then winning 5 of 7? I mean, it's a ridiculous run.
Yeah. You know what? It was that whole stretch was great from the standpoint that, I won some really great state events too. I won two section events as an amateur in that stretch. So I only played like maybe 4 or 5 total the whole time I was an amateur, and 2 of them I won against the pros that I was playing against when I was a club pro, and so I won the season ending IGA PGA amateur event 2 years in a row. And so there was a lot of that going on. I was just winning. Like I said, if there was a time in my life that I felt I played my best, it was then. And it just felt like I was going to shoot 4 or 5 under every single time I teed it up. And it almost didn't matter where it was. That's the best I've felt about who I was as a player, just scoring wise, I think at that time. But again, the best scoring I've probably had is right at the beginning of my Champions Tour run, but I can't say it felt the same. It felt like I was better in 8 to 12. So, I don't know, man. I really thought I was going to get a tour card, or at least conditional status, and maintain it for several years. I really felt that. So not having that is a bit of a letdown. And I understand there was COVID, and, it's no one's fault. Holly got, when Holly had cancer, if I would have had to quit golf, I would have quit golf. She was feeling bad for me. She was trying to push me out the door. I'm like, honey, I'm not going to play golf while you're getting treatments. I mean, we're not doing that, So it's fine. I have no regrets on any of that, but I definitely felt like I could get out there and stay out there. But right now, again, with where the level of play is and the number of guys, I mean, I just look at that and go, man, I think we're wasting our time a little bit right now going to the pre-qualifiers.
Yeah. I mean, how does it feel to have, really, a lot of the the local golf scene in Fort Wayne kind of behind you the last few years. I mean,
Mm,
yeah, I mean, you kind of go around, you go club to club, golf course to golf course. A lot of people know who you are. I believe a lot of people kind of follow your
yeah,
career, root for you. How's that
yeah,
feel to have that
yeah.
support behind you?
It's funny you mentioned that too, because this got brought up not recently, but talked about we at a dinner amongst friends, and Holly brought it up because she saw how when I first came back as an amateur and I won my first city, which was a very popular win, and then I started winning some other things, and it was still kind of cool. By the time we got to like Cedar Creek, going for my third one, there was the hate factor was starting
Right.
to factor
It
in.
flipped. Yeah. Yeah.
And so we laughed about that because there was some frustrating days for her out there where she's like, oh my God, like everyone's cheering for everybody else. They're not even cheering for any of Scott shots, and it was fine. It's cool. But I took it as a compliment, right?
It's respect. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But when I went on this run, and part of it I think has to do with, when I lost my amateur status, that was probably popular a little bit too at that time. That's
Probably.
a joke a little bit, but
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I guess what I was going to get at was the radio show. The radio show kind of reeled me back into that local golf scene, and I think people started to cheer for me a little bit then more, knowing that I had 50 coming. And then when 50 came, it seems like, yeah, everybody's been behind me. It's a wonderful feeling, man. You know what I mean? It's because it was a little bit of a roller coaster, for a while there. But
Yeah. Yeah.
listen, I wrote in the Facebook post that, for anybody who, texted me, emailed me, or, talked to me, stopped me, loved me along the way, or whatever I said, I just can't tell you how much that meant. I mean, that just keeps you going, because it is a push to get your game together, to get your body together, to get all of it together. It is an effort, a Herculean effort. It felt like to me, probably harder 2 years working at it the last 2 years than probably maybe ever, to get sort of mediocre results, right? Which is the downside of it. But yeah, it's been amazing. I've got so many friends in the golf. I love the golf community here. I just have, nothing but love for everybody that's in it.
Yeah. Um, I'm kind of just wrapping up here.
Yeah.
I appreciate you coming on. I know a lot of people care about, like I said, your career, just
Yeah.
where you're headed, and I'm glad you came on, at least just to kind of talk about where you've been, where you are now, and what your plan is. And that this isn't a retirement. This is kind of just, it's maybe an end of a one road, but you're this other road starting. And it's good to hear that you're still going to be playing, from time to time in some events, and you'll still be grinding away at it. So I
Yeah.
appreciate you coming on, and anytime you want to come back, talk golf, any other sports, you're always welcome.
Yeah, I appreciate that. One of the things I am going to do that I didn't mention, and I want to mention real quick, is I'm going to reestablish my handicap.
Yeah.
Because I've got a GIN number. I'm going to reestablish my GIN number. I'm going to activate it and reestablish my handicap, in the hopes that, I might play some net events around town. There might be a member guest or something that, it's okay for me to go play and have a little fun that way. So I'm looking forward to that, to be honest with you. My buddy in St. Louis is already talking about, dude, get that GIN number together and come play my member guest with me at Greenbrier Hills Country Club in St. Louis. So, I'm hoping, I know Tommy will let me do that, at Tommy Bodrin.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure Jeff Shoemaker will yet, but I'm going to work on him to be able to get into some of that stuff. But so there's plenty that I'll be able to do, and I'll be around, and you're still going to see me probably hitting balls and chipping and putting and messing around here and there. So I really appreciate you having me on to talk about this, and thank you and anybody who's listening and watching, who supported me over the years, man. It meant everything, and I really, really am proud of as it's all wrapping up. I'm proud of the effort that I gave.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I would think anyone in your shoes should be proud of a really of a hell of a career, and yeah, you should feel good about what you've accomplished. So again, thanks, buddy, for coming on. 5-time city champion, all around great guy, Scott Pieri.
We'll talk soon.
Sure thing. Thanks for listening to your best bets. We got a football show coming up this week with Zach Fitzgerald. We're going to debate the state of quarterbacks in the NFL. Can't wait for that one. So thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next time.